Despite being a smaller patch, Update 34 brought lots of significant changes and fixes to 76. Let me show you the highlights. Hello everyone, welcome back to another Fallout 76 video. I hope you have been well, I'm surely better health-wise. Now in this one I'm going to test and show you the 13 major changes part of Update 34, all official stuff from the patch notes. I know most points there are really minor things, but still there are a few which you should be aware of. Also, many other changes went live with this update, which are not officially announced. If you are interested in that, you might want to check my other patch overview here featuring stealthy changes, such as the recent legacy weapon buff, the explosive radius fix, or even the new server issues wave. Alright then, with that being said, let's get into the major official changes with Update 34. One of the biggest fixes live with this patch is about a huge cheat live for as long as I can remember, NPC spawning. Now, I'm not entirely sure if there are or were different ways for cheaters to spawn NPCs, but there is a great chance for that. I can't believe that Bethesda never fixed any NPC spawning issues before, with so many incidents over time. I mean, NPC spawning events have been happening since the release days. I even have some super old evidence from year 1 and 2 of 76, where cheaters mass spawn this male NPC near White Spring, for example, and later the Brotherhood of Steel ship from Fallout 4. It was also spawned somewhere in Appalachia, as you can see. But that should be no surprise. Some cheaters can easily spawn about anything they want, as long as they have the skills or third-party hacks. Anyway, I think the latest episode of NPC spawning was during the Fastnacht Day in February, where cheaters could mass spawn scavenger robots, which would obviously cause lots of lag and even server crashes. Even last week I saw this screenshot on Reddit showing that cheaters can spawn enemies as if they were items. Just look at this loot bag with death claws, hermit crabs, an assaultron, and so many other things I am not even sure what they are. So I'm assuming Bethesda fixed one way to spawn NPCs, but since I cannot test any of that, I can tell you guys what was fixed, if it's working, and so on. But it's certainly related to what I'm showing you here. The Thorn armor set has been on the spotlight for a while now, with buffs, nerfs, changes, and so on. With Update 34, we have yet another change and sort of buff. First of all, Bethesda fixed an issue which was causing the Thorn armor effect to stack when that was never intended. So now the bleed effect is no longer stacking, as you can see in my testing footage here. Now, since this bug has been live for a while and players got used to it, Bethesda decided to buff the bleed damage to sort of compensate for the fact that it no longer stacks. It now deals 5 times more damage than with Update 33. Now, the bleed damage is still pretty decent, even without stacking, and it can easily kill weak enemies, such as Scorched, lower creatures, and low-level super mutants. But when it comes to elites and high-level enemies, the bleed effect becomes more like a tickling effect. It drains the enemy HP bar very slowly, but that's to be expected. After all, this melee effect is supposed to help and boost your damage, not to do the killing by itself. I saw a few people on social media saying that Thorn armor is now useless, but I totally disagree with that. I think Thorn armor is still very viable and a must-have for strict melee builds. It just brings way too much value to ignore. Let's move on to some weapon changes now. Bethesda has finally enabled the ability to fill up your crit bar in VATS mode when using automatic melee weapons. Better later than never, I suppose. I used the Gauntlet, the Mr. Handy Buzz Blade, and the Ripper to test, and I can confirm this change is working consistently well. My crit bar actually fills up quickly. One hit in VATS normally equals half of the crit bar. However, there is a huge problem with this. Using auto melee weapons in VATS will almost instantly deplete your stamina bar. It's like you do a hit and boom, your stamina is gone. So it's not like playing this way is reliable or sustainable. If Bethesda wants players to use auto melee as they do with other melee weapons, then they will have to change a few more things here. Otherwise, this playstyle will remain underpowered and unattractive despite the VATS crit working now. The next point is a major bug fix related to missile launchers. Before Update 33, they were suffering from the unbreakable issue. Yeah, they would not lose any durability or break no matter how many missiles you would shot with such weapons. To test this, I went around the wasteland throwing bombs at anything that moved, and eventually my Hellstorm, a normal missile launcher, lost some durability, which obviously confirms this bug fix is in place. Now keep in mind that the durability breakdown depends on your build and even the length of your bar. Basically, the shorter your bar is, the more often it will break, so comparisons here can be a little tricky. Still on the weapons topic, Bethesda also fixed a frustrating bug affecting the alien Disintegrator and the alien blaster, which would not damage most objects and terrain. Now, this one is not easy to test, but I started by hitting my friend's camp, thanks to Madocrat by the way, filled with objects and lots of stuff, which would fit perfectly here. Both weapons dealt damage with every hit, so far so good. Then I went ahead and hit some irradiated corpses around, since they are environmental objects I think, or maybe even terrain objects. I'm not sure, but I think they also fit. At first I struggled a bit to get the corpse, as you can see, but I think it's because the pieces of another corpse were blocking my hits. I did one last test and each hit damaged and destroyed each corpse, so I do believe this fix is also working as described. Moving forward, the next fix is a very handy one. Bethesda finally resolved the major bug affecting instanced enemy spawns. I think West Tech is, or was, the most affected place, where super mutants could sometimes spawn frozen in time and space. In fact, I remember finding them naked with no weapons and their HP bars wouldn't budge when hit. For this video, I reset West Tech 10 times in a row, and surprisingly, not even once the mutant spawn bugged. So I do believe this fix is also working. Now, I did see some comments on social media about how this is not resolved, and examples were given, such as the ghouls at White Spring or mutants at Huntersville. But guys, this fix specifies instance enemies. I'm not sure if the bug is the same, but I don't think it is. Right now the fix is only for instances, inside locations with a loading screen to enter. So it's normal that places like White Spring is still spawning bugged enemies because it's not an instance. I hope that makes sense. Lastly, I also discovered that despite no bugged enemies anymore at West Tech, the place can still get messed up pretty badly. The assets can still go invisible as shown, and lag can still occur, like really badly. Just to let you know. The area looting feature also got a pretty good adjustment with this update. Now the corpse names show in a much more user-friendly way with increased visibility. With patch 34, corpse names now appear more spaced out and the font scales to properly fit the respective names. In other words, corpse names no longer get cut and they should always display with a bigger or smaller font depending on the length of their names. Before this patch, names would often get cut, which generated confusion. Sometimes I didn't even know what I was looting through the interface, but these days are over now, thankfully. The Scoreboard also received a couple of rank up here fixes. For console players, the player's current atom balance should automatically update after purchasing ranks through the rank up here option. Before, the atom's balance wouldn't always update. It would stay the same even after you buy ranks. The second improvement is also related to the rank up feature, which used to gray out even when you had enough atoms to acquire the respective ranks. This one seems to be in place too, but while testing I discovered something strange. I tried to purchase a rank to test things, and for my surprise, the system didn't let me. It kept saying something went wrong. Please try again later. I even changed servers, but the error persisted. I was only able to purchase the rank after restarting my game. So yeah, this might be an emerging issue with update 34. I'm not entirely sure. It's not like I buy ranks very often anyway. I recommend you guys to submit a support ticket if you are affected by any atoms or scoreboard bugs, which do not fix themselves with a game restart. Now for Fallout Worlds, Bethesda fixed the Collide feature under the relaxed building options. This specific option was quite buggy before patch 34, and it would often block players from intersecting most items, despite the purpose of collide, as the name says, which is to allow players to collide or intersect items with one another. I did a quick test here, and as you can see, I can freely place items on top of this plant bed, which has plants growing inside, typical places blocked in normal building. This is definitely a great fix for world builders. Alright, now let's talk about Photomode. With update 33, the Photomode order changed unexpectedly, part of a new bug, and some poses even went missing. But now everything is back to normal. Well, almost. The order is a bit differently now. The pose list order we had before is no longer present. With update 34, the Zorbos poses return to the list, if you previously unlocked them of course, as well as the looking into the future pose. But now the general order of all the poses is different. I actually remember the looking to the future pose used to be at the very end of the list, and now it's placed at the very middle, so at least one changed drastically. Well, at least we can now access all the unlocked poses and start doing awesome screenshots again, and that's great news. The Keyring also received a change with update 34, not a very noticeable one though, especially if you never use it. Bethesda basically added a new sound alert to indicate when you open or exit the Keyring sub-tab under MISC. I suppose they decided to add this one to generate less confusion while browsing your inventory. After all, it's a sub-tab, Pip-Boy, then inventory, then MISC, then Keyring. After all, it's a sub-tab, Pip-Boy, then inventory, then MISC, then Keyring. Yeah, it's definitely a 4-tree chain in the files. I guess it's a fine addition, it's nothing special though. Here's how the alert sounds like, in case you had no chance to check it yet. Another fix I selected for this overview is about the main settings. Under display, the default reset option was not exactly working, so restoring default settings for display was basically impossible for a while. At least automatically, but that's no longer an issue because resetting is now working. I tried on my end, and as you can see, it reset to the normal stuff. Everything went back to black. Literally, I had lots of fun changing my settings back after this test. The things I do in the name of science, but hey, it's definitely working though. The last official point I selected is about melee VATS in third-person mode, which could generate a nasty bug, the popular black screen. I think they are referring to the one where your sound goes off and all you can see is your interface. Everything else, it goes blank to black. I might be wrong though, I remember having that bug while using ranged weapons, so maybe this is another type of black screen bug. Who knows? Anyway, since I can test this one, I can say if it's working or not, but I did spend hours testing other points while using melee in VATS, and I always play in third-person mode, and no, nothing happened, at least no black screens in that matter, and I did test for 2 videos already, so maybe, just maybe, that could hint towards a fix, but it's not a given fact. That bug, if it is the one I'm talking about, it's pretty rare, so there is no real way to test it until it happens, or not. Update 34 was one of the smallest patches we had in a very long time, and honestly, in terms of patch notes, there's not a lot of major super important things to cover. Instead, there's lots of minor changes and a few good things to know. Anyway, these are my 13 official highlights for Update 34. If you are wondering why I didn't cover hot topics like the legacy weapon buff, that's because these were stealthy changes, not part of the notes, as I mentioned in the intro, but I have already covered that in another video. Feel free to watch it too. Well, that's everything for now. I hope you enjoyed the content. If so, feel free to leave a like, comment below, subscribe, and all of that. I am Marta Branco, and I will see you all very, very soon in the next one. As always, a special thanks to all my supporters. Alright then, take care, adeus, bye bye!